Hello and welcome to Inframe podcast. My name's Zeke. This is my partner Twayne, and you're listening to episode 3.
Partner, ooh.
Scandalous. You're listening to episode 3 of this podcast. Lovingly so.
Yes, and today's episode, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about gas, that kind of stuff. Not the stuff that builds up in your digestive system, but
Nausea,
gear
heartburn,
acquisition syndrome.
indigestion.
Indigestion. Pepto-Bismol.
Upset stomach. No, we're not. Yeah, we're not talking about
Diarrhea.
That kind of gas. We're talking
That kind of
about. I mean, technically, this is gas that everybody still gets in one form or another. Especially if you're a creative. Literally everybody gets gas in one way or another.
Yeah. And it's just that, I guess you could call it an obsession. Would you say it's an obsession?
I would say
is it one of those things where you're...
It's like it's a slippery slope, and it's the kind of slope that will turn into a downward spiral if you don't keep an eye on it and you don't realize you kind of have to catch it. Sometimes you don't
too.
Yeah, sometimes you don't realize that, you've got gas until you end up with 13 cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I have a bookshelf.
Do you know anybody that has 13 cameras?
Shout out to Drew. No, I have a lot of cameras, actually.
No. How many cameras do you have?
Do I have...
How many cameras do you have? Count them.
Pulls out the drawer.
Your drawer. Oh my goodness.
I mean, in my drawer right now, I have 3 cameras. I've got the one that we're talking on right now. I think in my cases, I think I have 3 to 4 other film cameras.
Okay.
And that's not even including.
Can you name them all?
If I
How
try.
many Polaroids do you have
right now? Polaroids.
Okay, yeah.
I have the SX70. I have the Spectra. I have the Sun 600. I have, Drew currently has the Passport camera. He also has the Land camera. And what else? I also have the OnePlus, the One Step Plus. Yeah. 6 Polaroid cameras. I use them pretty much all of them except for the Spectra. 2 of them aren't even with me, so they don't even count at this point.
They count because you still own them. What do you say? Is it just because you don't use them and they're in someone else's possession currently?
Yeah.
They count. You have 6 Polaroid cameras.
Yes. They all specialize. Okay. They all have different purposes, which is nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're all very they're kind of niche. Like my Polaroid Passport camera, it takes 2 photos side by side, and they actually used to use it for passport photos, which is kind of cool. Hence the name Passport camera. So yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I don't have 6 Polaroid cameras. I don't even know if I have 6 cameras. I'll say that. I mean, I've got the A7S III, which I'm filming on. I've got the A7R3. I've got the A7 III. I've got the Hasselblad 500. I've got the Nikon FA.
Okay.
I've got the Minolta Freedom 3. So I have 6 cameras.
I mean,
I have 6 cameras.
See, here's the thing with that though, is that it's not like we have 6 of the exact same camera or cameras that can do pretty much the same thing. They're all kind of niche, one's like the workhorse, one is like the machete that you carry around with you at all times.
It gets into the question, it's like need versus want. So I guess if you're talking to somebody that's just getting started with photography, how would you tell them to go about gear so that they are prepared for gas and also understand what it is, but so they don't go down that slippery slope?
Yeah. So gas, basically, it's when you start really just acquiring gear for the sake of acquiring gear. In my opinion, I think it's more so like when you start staying and living on eBay or Kijiji, and you start going, oh, okay, I can buy this camera and I can buy this camera, and oh, there's like a guy who has like a whole bucket of them. I'm just gonna go and buy a bunch, and this and that. But then they end up being like paperweights. You know what I mean?
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, like they end up sitting and you don't really know how to use them. You like I can safely say that each camera that I own, I know like at least 70% of its functions. Like I know the main ins and outs. I know what I would use it for versus using another camera. And I think that's sort of the difference. Like people who just acquire gear for the sake of acquiring gear, they need the latest and greatest, or they just want bragging rights, essentially. But you ask them, what photo they took on it, and they're like, well, I took a photo of my cat. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think in that sense, then like gas is dangerous, and it's something that you need to really understand what you're doing. Like, I don't think you should have gear for the sake of having it, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. It's cool to try out stuff. If you're curious about gear, rent it. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Like, if you're curious about how something works, rent it. I mein, if you're in a big city like we're in Toronto, we have that luxury where there are rental houses, mm-hmm. And places that will rent film cameras even that you really can't get anywhere else, or you could only really get used. So it becomes a thing where I think people are eager to just try out new gear. So, I mean, if you want to spend money that way, rent it. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
or
I'm definitely guilty of gas.
Yeah. Or find find like a friend or somebody who, might have this camera or, something like that. And then be like, hey, like, do you mind if I borrow this for like, if you're not using it for the foreseeable future, like, can I borrow it for like a weekend? And, you get to play around with it. You're not spending like loads of money, but you're getting a feel for, okay, like this camera might be useful for a certain shoot or like something, or like, you're like, okay, like this is a game changer. I need this camera. It's going to become, it's essential to the look and feel that I'm trying to go for,
Right.
Yeah.
So like, and you understand that about like all your Polaroids, like, that you'd bring this Polaroid on this shoot, the other Polaroid on another shoot, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I think it's more so like the weird thing about Polaroid is that, quite a few of the film they've discontinued. So there's some cameras, like for example the Polaroid land camera that I absolutely love, but the Fuji pack film that you would load into it is discontinued. So for me to be able to shoot it, I have to spend like $120 for 10 shots, which is ridiculous. So until they decide to bring that film back or somebody picks it up, I'm gonna hold on to my Polaroid because it's one of my favorite mediums to shoot with. And the feel is very different. Like you get a whole different feel with the Polaroid. It's a little bit crisper. It doesn't have that same nostalgic look as some of the other stuff, but it's still, I don't know. It's very different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think, it's how you use the tool, not how much of the tool you have, right? So
yeah,
if your tool serves its purpose, like if the goal of your work is to tell a story, and I mean, I think with every creative medium, that is the ultimate goal, is like, how are you telling a story with your tool, especially in photography and cinematography and videography? Mm-hmm. Are the tools that you're using enough to tell your story? And it's like one of those things where I say is like, is it sufficient? Especially when you're buying new gear, it's like, oh, is what I have sufficient, or is that other thing necessary to what I'm doing? Right. So mm-hmm. It's like, I look at it and it's like, yeah, like I would love another A7S III. Mm-hmm. It would make some of my corporate work a lot easier because I would just have two cameras that match. But I don't think it's necessary to my work because I can still use the A7 III and the A7R III. I can go into DaVinci Resolve and do a color space transform and be in the same color spaces and have no problem matching the cameras to one another. Mm-hmm. So it's like things like that you kind of want to think about when you're going to upgrade. It's like, can you get by with the gear that you already have?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, definitely consider, what you're going to be using this stuff for, versus like, ooh, this is a shiny new toy. Because it becomes really slippery. Like cameras are very nice.
Yeah.
A lot of them have really cool functions, and like, sometimes people want like the biggest camera they could possibly find, or like the best camera they can possibly find. I'm pretty sure like,
Yeah.
a lot of us would want a Leica or a Hasselblad. Some of us do have a Hasselblad, Twayne. But
hey, okay, look, just like the housing market, you got to get into it early, okay? I got into film photography very early, and I knew I wanted medium format.
Oh yeah.
I knew I wanted medium format because I could print large, and the negatives were just better than 35 mil. Like my first film camera was a medium format camera.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't want to waste money on 35 mil. I knew that shooting medium format would be slower. I knew that, but I didn't mind it. But I love the feel of 6.7, 6x6.
Yeah.
And I knew it. And so I made a decision. I want the Hasselblad. I don't think I had a reason as to why I wanted it back then, but it has paid off in spades on every shoot that I've used it on. So sometimes you might be like, oh yeah, you buy this thing because to you it's new and shiny. And then you love it so much and you use it on all these projects and you realize, yeah, it does have a use for me. And like, I don't think I'm going to get rid of it. So, gas might turn into that, a realization where like, oh, I kind of bought it because it was cool, but then, oh, it actually really does help my workflow. So
yeah,
you never know.
Yeah. Well, no, like I'm saying, like I'm pretty sure all of us would want the absolute best camera that you could possibly buy, and like, some people would spend thousands of dollars on, these cameras. Like for example, I think Sony just released the new A9, or is it the A9 or the A1? It's the A1.
And the A1.
It's like,
yeah. Oh my God. I got a story about that.
It's like, why do you, like, for starters, it's pretty cool that they're able to get to that point. Like the technology is able to get to a point where they can achieve a camera like the A1. Do you need an A1 to shoot most of the stuff that we shoot? Like, like normal people shoot? Not really. Like all those features and bells and whistles is very specialized. And often you'll see people diving for these cameras because it's the hottest and latest thing. But it's like, do you need it? Do you absolutely need, what is it? Like 40 something?
Or 50 megapixels. Or it's like they think if they have their favorite photographer's camera that they're going to shoot like that photographer.
Yeah.
Like Zeik, I know you have an experience like that. So, I mean, if you want to explain to the audience how that went down.
So I had a coworker, and he'd always he'd always see me bring my camera in, because sometimes I'll take my camera to a job site to take photos. I like the high resolution. A lot of the times we can't really like go too far or too close into like these nameplates on equipment that we're trying to photograph. So having a high resolution is nice, because then I can just zoom in and take a look at things that way. But I had a coworker who basically saw this, and he was like, wow, this camera is so cool. Like, it's the Sony series, and it's mirrorless, and it's full frame, and this and that. So then he, I guess, like, after seeing my gear, got really inspired to go out and take a look at possibly buying this gear. And he ended up looking at the time, it was like the Sony A7R2 or the R3, the Zeiss, I think, Batis lenses, and he was looking at the Batis like 25 or something like that, like one of those lenses. So, and I guess the grand total of that kit would have been close to about $6,000 or something like that. And so I looked at him, I was like, what are you planning on? Well, yeah, it's the R series plus like a Zeiss lens, like a really high end. And I asked him, I was like, what are you going to use this for? Like, what are you shooting? And he was like, oh, I'm going to take it on trips. And I looked at him and I was like,
you're going to get robbed.
The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to land somewhere and you're going to walk through some crowd and then walk out of it with just your camera strap. Like, you're going to get robbed. Or worse, you're gonna go like climbing or you're gonna do stuff and it's just gonna bang around. You're gonna smash your lens. You're gonna ruin your gear. I mean, I'm all for taking your gear on, and using it to its full extent. But like, if you're just taking it on a casual trip, you don't need a $6,000 setup. Let's be real. So I remember
you just need your iPhone if you got one, right?
Yeah. I remember telling him, I was like, your iPhone is probably the best thing. If you want to go with like a camera, like an actual camera, don't get a $6,000 setup. You can get one of the smaller like Sony cameras, and you don't need full frame. You don't need all these features. And he's like, yeah, but the depth of field and the bokeh and the crispness of the colors and stuff. And he's showing me these photos off of like social media and Flickr, and I'm like, that's all post. Like those punchy colors you really love, that you can achieve that through post. You can put your own tone, your own feel on it, and that's probably a prime example of what goes on with a lot of consumers that try to buy these cameras. They think, oh, the camera is gonna definitely make my work a lot better, but no, it's definitely not the case.
Yeah, it's funny that there's still people that think that way. That the camera is the thing that makes the picture. It's not. Never is the case and never will be the case. But I think that mentality has sort of come about because of social media and because of the rise of user-generated content and YouTube. I want to say YouTube marketing and social media marketing and like Instagram marketing, because all these camera companies send their latest and greatest to these YouTubers and they review it, right? And they're like, oh, it's just an average person that's in front of a camera. I could be that average person in front of a camera, so I guess I need that camera too to kind of do XYZ. So it's like, it's that sort of marketing strategy that makes you think that you need it, but in reality that you probably don't need it. So that's the way I feel about every new camera that comes out, because there's embargoes on all these camera like releases, because YouTubers have about a week with it before, have a week to shoot with it, and they film the review, and then the embargo's lifted, and then you see your sub box flooded with every YouTuber and their mother talking about the new camera that just got released or announced. So, and so people are watching them, it's like, oh yeah, like this is great, like oh my gosh. And do you see how, in marketing, it's always content, right? Push as much product onto your consumer as much as you can. And that's basically what camera companies are doing with these like embargoes, so that everyone gets flooded with all this product and they're seeing review after review after review from their favorite YouTubers. And then they start to think in their heads like, yeah, maybe I need one of these. I was like, yeah, maybe I can shoot that kind of stuff with that, So, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but
a lot of the
it's
times
kind of cool to see the technology though. Like,
yeah, a lot of times like you'll go on YouTube and you'll see like, oh, how to get this effect, or how to achieve this look or stuff, and it's always tied together with like a piece of equipment or a lens or something, or there's lens reviews, which is really funny. But most of the time you don't need that stuff, and if you experiment with the gear that you have, maybe you already can achieve those looks, or you can achieve the kind of photo that you want to get. But it's often a trap to follow those videos. Sometimes no, like sometimes I find those things useful, like lighting, for example, like a brand new panel. But a lot of the times people will fall under the trap of, oh, there's this new release, there's new equipment review, and like I gotta try it, I gotta get my hands on it, kind of deal.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because as soon as the A1 was announced, I'm part of this Discord that's basically a bunch of us camera nerds and stuff like that. And I comment, playing devil's advocate. I'm like, really? Like, who's going to need this camera unless you are a sports photographer, a fashion photographer, and high-end like photographer, or someone that does like commercial work that needs that high megapixel count. And someone responded to me, he's like, yeah, well, I do all of those. And I also shoot video as well. So I think I'm going to get this camera. And then he goes on. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Okay. Yeah. We found the one golden boy over here that does everything,
Does it
apparently.
all.
Full time, apparently. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But then the icing on the cake for me was, he's like, yeah, I have the R4, the Sony A7 R4, which is a 60 megapixel camera. Okay. Doesn't shoot 8K video like the A1. And he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to miss the extra 10 megapixels from the R4 going to the A1. And I'm like, excuse me? You're going to miss 10 megapixels? I was like, what? Are you out of your mind? Like, no one's going to notice that unless you are a heavy retoucher. A heavy retoucher and a heavy cropper. No one's going to notice that. 10 fucking megapixels? Like, I threw my phone down and I'm like, that's enough internet for the day. Like, that was my, I need to turn my phone off for a second. Like,
yeah.
I literally couldn't believe it. Like that. Yeah. And I was like, I was trying to, you know what? And I'm a bit of a dick because I went to go look for this guy's work because he actually had his like full name in like as part of his Discord username.
You did a bit of
I couldn't find shit. I was like,
where's your fashion photography?
I did. I was
where's
like,
your sports photography? Where's all this stuff?
And I was like, okay, maybe he shoots stock images and he's like a ghost photographer or something. But I was like, okay, whatever. So it's like stuff like that like it irks me because it's like, you know, those are the people driving the gas culture a little bit. So, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like,
I mean, do you... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, a lot of people...
You were going to say? Yeah.
A lot of people have the money to do so. And if you got it, great, you know, go buy your gear and have fun. Like, you know, like there's people that have like broken 7 of the same camera because they just don't care. Like they have the money, so they'll go on a job, toss it around. It's like, oh, it's beat up, but I got the footage, and then just go back to Henry's or whatever, buy a new kit, go back out to their job. Like it's whatever. If you can do that, kudos to you. But the majority of people,
I would cry.
The majority of people that have gas really don't have that kind of, you know, income or wallet or even the projects to really justify going through and getting brand new gear all the time.
You don't need 8K video. I'll say that. I shoot a lot of video. You don't need it. No one's gonna be viewing fucking 8K. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, but like I like to crop the video and get like 3 different camera angles. I was like, bitch, work on your composition, okay?
Yeah.
Number 1, you don't need 8K.
Yeah. Well, so here's the other thing. The opposite end of that is, I remember I used to watch these videos that were like photographer challenges. I think there was like a channel, I forget what the name was, but they would get like these really dinky toy cameras and challenge photographers to shoot them. And I remember there was this one photographer.
Digital Rev TV.
Was it digital? Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Digital Rev. When Kai used to work out of Hong Kong. Oh my God. Kai was actually like, he was so funny. So funny. He was like one of the first reviewers that I really watched about camera gear. But yeah.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was like Laura Jade who basically I think he handed her a toy camera. It was like 3 megapixels or less. I don't know, but by today's standards, like that's a terrible camera. And I think, you know, professional photographers are used to shooting with DSLRs, like Canon, Nikon, Sony, whatever. But that was the challenge, was they would get these toy crappy cameras. I think it even spoke to you, like, you know, and just to see what you would get out of it, you know, because a real photographer, like a photographer worth their salt, you can give them like the crappiest gear or whatever, but they'll play around with it at first, figure out the quirks, figure out what's, you know, what makes it work, what doesn't work on it, and then they'll take that and run with it, you know, like they don't need to have all the bells and whistles. Like it just makes things easier. But photographers that know what they're doing can take almost any camera really and make good use out of it. So
yeah, 100%. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think like we all have those dumb purchases that we just bought because we were in the moment. I mean, do you have like, what's your like the dumbest camera related purchase that you have done?
I'm trying to think. I would say when I first started shooting with DSLRs, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted. Like I didn't know what I was gonna do with it because I wasn't really shooting portraiture at the time. I wasn't, it was kind of I just needed something that was all around. So at the time, I had my kit, which was a D3200, the 18 to 55 lens, and I think I had bought with that kit the 55 to 300 because I was like, all right, I got some extra cash, like drop it on a zoom lens, so I have the full range. And then it was this bad I was constantly switching lenses because I didn't know what I wanted to shoot with, and all that jazz. And I think the 55 to 300 didn't have that great of an aperture. I think it was minimum of like 4.5 or something like that. So I was constantly on like the Henry's used page. I was constantly looking at gear and like what I can get with it. Um, I hate to say this, but there was a point where I sold both of those lenses, and I ended up buying an 18 to 200 millimeter lens. It was like one of those super zooms.
Those exist?
They exist on crop body. 18.
Oh, okay.
18 to 200 millimeter. So that means I could go super wide if I wanted to, or I could go really like telephoto in. And I'm like, wedding photographers carry the 70 to 200 millimeter lens. So this is like about as close as I can get and still encompass like the wider side of that range. Yeah, no, that was probably one of my worst purchases ever because I loved low light photography, and that was a lens that you can't really shoot low light in.
No. Probably like f5.6 like minimum aperture or something.
Yeah, and there was like crazy distortion, and there was a lot of vignetting and chromatic aberration on the. Yeah, it was a mess of a lens. I thought it was great because it could do it all. It was a walk around lens. But that's when I realized, okay, maybe I don't want that all encompassing super zoom. Maybe I stick to a focal length, and then go from there. So I think the purchase after that, I think I ended up selling that kit or that lens, and ended up getting the 35 mil 1.8, and then that was like I was like a prime shooter from that point onward. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah,
what's your
at least I'm trying to think. Well, I'm gonna think about this for a second. Maybe there's a couple here. The Koken ND filters, the square ND filters, like the beginner series.
Oh yeah.
I thought I was going to be a landscape photographer, so I bought a 0.3, a 0.6, and a 0.9 ND, so I could do long exposures and grab those waterfall shots.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize that variable NDs existed at the time, and I know variable NDs suffer from certain qualities, but I bought these square NDs, and I still have them. I haven't gotten rid of them. That was one. And then the other one I would say was probably, I bought the Yashica Electro 35 because I wanted a point and shoot film camera. And it was like half point and shoot, half rangefinder because you still had to manual focus. And I did actually sell that one, but I think I only put 2 rolls of film through it. So pretty pointless, pretty stupid. I thought I'd enjoy it, but turns out I really didn't. So I have the Minolta Freedom 3, which is like my now point and shoot camera, which I bring on like vacation and stuff. And if it does happen to break or someone like steals it, I'm not mad because it only cost me $12. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think those were the 2 biggest things. I mean, there's also like, I look around, like I'm looking behind me because like I'm trying to look at my gear right now and figure out like, is there stuff that I regret buying? And no, not really. I use everything.
Yeah.
I do use everything, I would say. I mean,
yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't use the Ronin M as much as I used to. That's only because I haven't been shooting projects like that because of like COVID and stuff. But, I'm not going to sell the Ronin M. I think it's a beast of a stabilizer. So
yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? And I think the thing that I learned, over the years of like dealing with gas, because every now and then you will get gas even though you're aware of it, you'll be like, okay, well, I still want to get a bunch of stuff. The thing that I've
Yeah.
learned really is before you buy something, like do as much research as you can on that particular piece of equipment. Try to find out as much as you can. Read reviews. Watch YouTube videos, which is funny because we were ripping on YouTube videos earlier. But watch reviews and
Yeah.
try to learn as much as you can. Learn the caveats. Learn, um, what that particular piece of gear excels in and how it'll fit into your arsenal. Because at the end of the day, you want something that you want to use and something that you enjoy using and will last you a while versus, an impulse buy. I think that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest differentiations of, just straight up gas and something that, it's a little bit more educated with your purchase and a little bit more careful. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And like I always like to say, spend the money once, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna buy something that's gonna be part of your kit, spend the money once, because I mean, you don't want to spend it twice. Everyone's gonna think, the upfront cost is so much.
Mm-hmm.
But if that upfront cost is gonna be basically equated over the next 2 or 3 shoots you've done, then you're good, right? Don't think about getting something cheap or something just because, oh, it's the latest and greatest right now. Think about just spending the money once, because I've made that mistake where I've purchased like 2 different things, but they were like serve the same purpose, and I was like, damn, if I'd only known about this other thing before I bought this one, kind of deal.
Yeah.
So I did that with lavalier microphones, and I'm stupid because I knew I needed a lavalier mic, but I was tight on money, and I just bought a cheap one, and I don't even use that cheap one anymore. It's just kind of sitting there, and it was like, no one's gonna buy this because the audio out of it is like trash. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm out essentially the cost of my new lavalier mics plus that one, which is stupid on my part. So maybe that was the most stupid thing I did, but
Yeah, fair. Yeah. No, for me, I guess right now, what the gas that I'm dealing with isn't even related to camera gear. I got into cookware.
Yeah, we know.
What do you mean we know? I got into cookware, and
Bro, tell them about your kitchen.
so basically, because of COVID and everything, like as much as I would love to order Uber Eats all the time and get food that I really enjoy, Uber Eats adds up, and it's not the smartest thing to do with this whole pandemic thing. So every once in a while, it's good, but it's more sustainable if you cook more often and then treat yourself to Uber Eats once in a while. So since the start of this pandemic, I started cooking more, and I've bought like decent cookware. Like I think when I first moved into my apartment, I bought like nonstick pans and the like stuff that you would find at Walmart. Just super cheap. Like I just needed a pan to fry things in. But over time, like I'll notice like it's not something that I noticed right away, but I started noticing like last year that one of my pans was super warped. So like the oil would pool off to the sides, or like the Teflon was like starting to come off, or stuff like that. So I'm focusing in on pans in particular because I had just recently bought a new one. I'm gonna focus in on that part of my kitchen and not anything else. So last year I got into like cast iron pans because they're workhorses.
How many cast
cook.
iron pans do you have, Zeek?
I have 2.
2. Okay. I guess that's fair, but most people have 1. Okay, let me tell you, most people have 1, either an 8-inch or a 10-inch. This guy's got 2.
Okay.
What's your smallest cast iron pan?
It's a 6-inch, and it's great for just frying up like single eggs. Like you're not using a massive. I'm trying to justify my purchase here. No, but like I bought 2 cast iron pans, and I started like looking into the benefits of getting like a proper nonstick pan and stuff like that. Because cast iron stuff still stick. Like sometimes I'll cook dumplings, and it'll just like it's no good, even though you season them enough and stuff. Or maybe I'm not seasoning it well enough. So recently I like went into this huge dive of looking at nonstick pans and like, trying to spend a good amount of time researching which ones was the best. Because nonstick pans, if you cheap out, it's not great. Like it releases chemicals and stuff. And I think I was looking at like a $200 pan from Allclad, and I was like, I was ready to purchase it. And I was like, no, this is absurd. Like it's crazy. This is not something that I should be doing.
You were also ready to purchase a $700 blender. Okay?
You cannot talk.
I'm not. I'm just saying.
I said we're focusing in on the pan side of things. So, anyways, long story short, I ended up buying a carbon steel pan. And yes, I did end up buying a pan, but I did a lot of research into it, and I looked at, the benefits of carbon steel. Carbon steel is relatively cheap. Like I think I got mine for like under $100, and it's made in France, and there's no like nonstick coating on it. But as you use it, or after you season it properly, and you continue to use it, it's basically non-stick. Like it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. A lot of professional kitchens use it, and I think I spent a good like 2 weeks researching everything I could about this stuff. So
are you gonna start an OnlyPans account?
Wow.
Sorry, I had to go there.
Wow. Link in bio.
Yeah, it's just ASMR of Zeik cooking with his pans.
Oh, could you imagine? Oh,
I think that would get views, but yeah. Okay. All right.
Back on track.
So that's, okay, your gas is, I wish my gas was non-tech related, but mine is tech related, sadly, unfortunately for my wallet and for my girlfriend.
Oh no.
It's audio gear. Mm-hmm. I will say that. I love good sounding audio, and I love analog audio. Mm-hmm. I don't like using plugins and things like that. Although if I have to, I will. And not that I have a lot of money in the world. Like I don't have, amp heads and cabinets and stuff like that for my guitars. But like for this podcast, I decided to run my mic into a good preamp, and the preamp has, it has a compressor. It's got a de-esser, an enhancer, which is almost like an EQ, but it's only like a 2-frequency EQ, and then an expander or gate, which basically is analog noise reduction. It's like, do I need this? No. Do I want it? Yeah, because my voice sounds good with it, and I don't have to touch it in post. And then I run everything through a Steinberg, which is basically an external sound card that makes everything sound like super crispy. So, I don't know. I carry that from like my childhood because like I play guitar and stuff like that. And I have 3 guitars. Mm-hmm. I tried to sell one, but, I don't know. That's my gas, and I'm not going to justify it. I know I have it. Mm-hmm. The other day I was online looking for 500 series channel strips. Oof. I was looking at getting another EQ channel strip for my computer and my like audio stuff. And like I don't even sing well. Like I'll tell you that. I don't sing well. I can't sing at all. Like let me tell you.
Can.
But for voiceovers and dialogues and stuff like that. Lock them doors. I'm not gonna do that one again. But yeah, like I don't even sing. I play one instrument. And so I was like, do I need it? And I was like, but I don't even have to do anything in post or in like Audition or DaVinci Resolve or anything like that. So I don't know. I'm trying to convince myself that I actually need it, but I don't need it. It's just saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is gas, and we want to help you try and avoid it. There's a tool for the job, and make use of what you have as to the best of your ability. When your gear stops working for you, I think that's when you have to ask yourself, what do I need to get the job done, or what other tools would help me get the job done so that I'm not struggling with the gear that I already have, which wouldn't be working for you. And, don't be afraid to treat yourself, because, treating yourself is good, but don't let that turn into gas. Essentially, It's like, oh yeah, like I worked this job, so I'm going to treat myself with this new gear and that new gear. Mm-hmm. You still got bills to pay. I think most people do. So, just be smart about it. And that will be episode 3 of Inframe Podcast. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our podcast on any platform where podcasts are found. This will be available on YouTube, so you can see our beautiful faces if you'd like. And don't forget to give us a follow on Instagram at Inframe Podcast. Thanks, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.